John Durham was, at one point, the man whom Republicans had hoped would expose some kind of nefarious plot within the Justice Department to attack Donald Trump. Republicans had hoped Durham would prove that the Robert Mueller investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election was, in their words, a big hoax. But John Durham did not do any of those things. After a 4-year-long investigation and 2 failed prosecutions, John Durham's final report amounted to little more than a few process criticisms about the FBI's investigation and 1 guilty plea with no jail time. Today's hearing was supposed to be a victory lap for Republicans, but instead it ended up being an opportunity for Democrats to highlight the findings of the very investigation that John Durham was supposed to discredit. Here was Congressman Adam Schiff in one of those exchanges.
The Russians released stolen emails through cutouts, did they not?
There were emails.
It's a very simple question. Did they release information, stolen information through cutouts, yes or no?
Yeah, I'm not sure that...
You really don't know the answer to that? The answer is yes, they did. Through D.C. League...
Well, in your mind, it's yes.
Well, Mueller's answer was yes. More important than mine, Mueller's answer was yes. Now, that information, of course, was helpful to the Trump campaign, wasn't it?
I don't think there's any question, but that the Russians intruded into,
I just want to
hacked into the systems, they released information.
And that was helpful to the Trump campaign, right?
And the conclusion in the ICA and in the Mueller investigation was that the Russians intended to assist.
Can you answer my question, Mr. Durham? That was helpful to the Trump campaign, right?
Yeah, that's...
And Trump made use of that, as I said, didn't he, by touting those stolen documents on the campaign trail over 100 times?
I said, I don't really read the newspapers or listen to the news. I don't
find all
that reliable, so I don't know that.
Mr. Durham, you're totally oblivious to Donald Trump's use of the stolen emails on the campaign trail more than 100 times? Did that escape your attention?
I am not aware of that.
Now, it's moments like that that have made Congressman Adam Schiff a target of retribution by Republicans in the House of Representatives. Earlier this year, Republicans voted along party lines to strip Congressman Schiff from his position on the House Intelligence Committee. But apparently that wasn't enough, because today House Republicans once again used their control of that chamber to hold another vote on rebuking Adam Schiff. Earlier this evening, House Republicans voted along party lines to censure Congressman Schiff, which is a move typically reserved for members who have committed some serious ethical violation. Democrats chanted shame as Speaker McCarthy officially gavelled in the vote. Here was Congressman Schiff on the House floor moments before that vote took place.
Today, I wear this partisan vote as a badge of honor, knowing that I have lived my oath, knowing that I have done my duty to hold a dangerous and out-of-control president accountable.
Joining us now is the Congressman Adam Schiff. He's a Democrat of California. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for being with us tonight on your first night as a censured representative, a member of Congress. What do you think this vote censuring you got them?
Well, it got them the continuing gratitude for at least another day of Donald Trump. This is what this was about, of showing their subservience to him, doing his bidding. And more than that, for some of them, and 1 out of 10 of the Republicans last week voted against a resolution of censure. This week they voted for it because Donald Trump said if they didn't, he would make sure they had primary challenges. So this is the continuing devotion to this most unethical of former presidents. This is what this is about. It's also, frankly, a badge of honor because they're going after me because they think I'm effective. At the end of the day, if they don't think you're effective, they leave you alone. But they want to try to make examples out of people who stand up to their lack of ethics, who stand up to their corrupt leader. They think I've done a good job, maybe too good a job of that, and so they're going after me again.
What was it? Something specific? Because there are a whole lot of your colleagues who've done similar things. What was specifically about you? And I guess my question is, what stops them from doing this to other members?
Well, nothing stops them from doing it to other members. In terms of why was it particular to me, I led the investigation of Donald Trump's misconduct vis-a-vis Russia, his misconduct vis-a-vis Ukraine. I led the first impeachment trial to the first bipartisan vote to convict a U.S. president in history. And then I served on the January 6th committee, and that put me at the top of Trump's enemy list. And so this is them doing their bidding, going after someone they think has been effective. But it's also their effort to try to silence and intimidate others. It's not going to work on me, but it may chill others from being willing to be out front in defending our democracy. And in that respect, it's really dangerous to the institution.
I want to play a little of what former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said about this today.
Today, we are on the floor of the House where the other side has turned this chamber, where slavery was abolished, where Medicare and Social Security and everything were instituted, they've turned it into a puppet show. A puppet show. And you know what? The puppeteer, Donald Trump, is shining a light on the strings. You look miserable.
What's your sense, Congressman, about what happens next? Because there have been Republicans who were censured in the last Congress. Is this their way of sort of evening the playing field and diminishing the effect of those censures?
Well, I think it's their way of saying, if you use a process for a good and legitimate reason, we will use it for an illegitimate reason. That's who they are. McCarthy has no control over the House. He looked more like he was being censured today than I did. And, you know, he's turned over the House of Representatives to the crazies. You know, the speakers today on their side of the aisle were Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert and Luna, basically the extreme of the extreme MAGA fringe. But that's who's running the House. You know, they have an impeachment resolution against Joe Biden next. There's a censure resolution they've introduced against Benny Thompson. They are determined to just drag that House chamber down. And it's a terrible disservice, as the Speaker was pointing out, to the American people, because we have serious challenges to address, including homelessness, an opioid epidemic, and students mired in debt. And, of course, they're doing nothing about these things. What they are doing is using now 2 weeks of the House time to go after Donald Trump's enemies.
Congressman, good to see you again tonight. Thanks for joining us, Congressman Adam Schiff.